When anybody thinks about pollinator habitat, they think they gotta start from scratch. They gotta open up the soil, they gotta get the expensive seed and they grow it. This project was different. What we focused on was what assets already exist on the property. What high value plants have already sunk their roots down, are already set up and established. Can we build conservation around those pinpoints? And in addition to that, when we know what plants are already here, what's missing? What are the plants that if they were put here, bee species diversity would increase? So I am one component in this project, the professional, but then there's all the producers. And so we had all sorts of discussions where we're always touching bases. I bring my scientific experience and the producers are able to tell me, this is what we need. This is specifically the problem that we need solved.
Well, Sokol-Blosser's mantra is sustainability across the operation. We look at everything we do through the lens of sustainability. And one of the things that we're very excited about is increasing our pollinator species through this program.
Grapes don't depend on pollinators. We don't need pollinators to make a good grape crop, although there are ways in which bees can help with grapes. So while it might not be something that our vineyard is dependent on, we recognize the value of pollinators in general for human life and for the ecosystem. So it's just kind of our interest and excitement to help.
There was an incredible sense of environmental stewardship in the Oregon wine industry, and that I could just see the combination. A new standard, an industry that really cared about the environment, and I thought we could pull this together and put bee habitat on vineyards. Western Oregon is a challenge. For much of the spring, there's a lot of pollinator habitat everywhere. It's awash with plants that provide nectar and pollen to our almost 800 species of bees that we have in the state. But as you come through the month after July, especially here in the Willamette Valley, it gets very dry. It's left a real hole for both our managed bees and wild bees. July and August, it's crispy brown out there and there are not a lot of nectar and pollen producing plants to fill that gap.
And in a lot of the agricultural areas, we've already cut down our cover crop, so all those flowering plants are now missing.
The anchoring principle around this project is save what you have and plant what you can. So really focusing on what exists on the property for pollinator habitat, bolstering that, and then figuring out what are the highest priority plants that could go on this property to boost biodiversity.
So when we look at our landscaping, which we want because we have visitors to our tasting room, we want it to look beautiful all year long, we try to put in plants that have sequential blooming, that are both beautiful and are good for the pollinators, so that the pollinators will always have something that they like.
Well, we found sheep sorrel and common vetch, sweet spire, some of those, but then we've also planted milkweed and clarkia, the Pacific ninebark, we just have a lot of those, kincaid's, lupin, meadow checker bloom, and oak owl.
One of the key deliverables of this project is that we not only related the plants that the producers were capturing on iNaturalist to the bee community, but we actually went through and we caught bees on the property. And lo and behold, what we predicted would be here from our large data set and what we caught on the property were very tight. That was the first validation that we could turn this out into a really useful conservation product, and that has spurred all sorts of development, but it really started with this project. We had the proof of concept.
I thought maybe they'd find, bumblebees, honeybees, maybe one or two others. They found 68 different varieties of bees.
I believe we had over 70 species of bees.
So we started with 6 producers. At the end of the project, we have 30 producers that have signed on to this. So by showing and demonstrating how easy this was, we were able to bring on a whole number of vineyards, both in the Willamette Valley, but also outside of the region. We have some bee communities that are surviving on smaller and smaller parcels of land. And as soon as we can open that up and connect together these vineyards, I think could play a big role in an overall strategy for preserving wild bees.
Vineyards are planted on hillsides, and it's a place that typically has not been taken up by other agriculture and by other commercial projects. So I think it's really a responsibility that vineyard owners and vineyard managers have to protect that land and to use that land in careful ways.
As a researcher and an extension person, I am following agriculture. I'm following the professionals. There's innovation that's taking place everywhere. I have a skill set that can help, but really, I can't really do high impact research without these tight connections with producers.
So in order to make sure that the research that scientists are doing is the most beneficial and actually realistic for implementation in kind of our real day-to-day operations, we need to participate in their research so that there can be that kind of back and forth that proves out and actionable steps that we can take in our vineyards.
Western Sere has been really the critical part of this. Anthony could have had this great idea, but he never could have pulled it off without Western Sere. So the fact that Western Sere is looking for projects which pull together academics and producers, research and actual producers, and really is focused on sustainability and projects that add to sustainable farming, it's doing a huge service.